Okay, let's get started, guys. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. So 15-minute timer is on. This is a lightning talk, and I'm glad to be here. This is enhancing mundane deployments with Terraform. So my name is Anthony Spiteri, and I'm a senior global technologist in Veeam software in the product strategy team, right? So long-term consumer of technology, worked in service providers all my career as a lead architect, engineer, and whatnot. So big on automation, and fell in love with Terraform from the very first time that I actually started using it. So very, very quickly, what we're going to go over in this lightning talk. I'm going to talk about the why, why the mundane approach is still being taken by some people and why it's okay and why we can change. I'm then going to talk about the how. So, how I actually took to a situation that was a mundane deployment, pretty boring, used a bit of Terraform and a few more tooling to basically make it a little bit more dynamic. And with that, ended up with a situation where I had a dynamic deployment, a project that was on GitHub, and a use case that wasn't seen before for this particular situation. Okay. So let's just first talk about the mundane. So mundane, by its definition, is lacking interest or excitement or dull, okay? And if you look at the synonyms down there, tedious, monotonous, tiresome, wearisome, all these adjectives that are there are basically describing a lot of our day-to-day operations as IT administrators, right? For so long, we did everything on repetition, and that's okay. One of the things that I wanted to point out at the start here was that I actually gave a talk, a bit of a 101 on Terraform to a VMware user group, actually HashiConf last year in Australia, 2 audiences, both with about 100 people in each audience. I actually asked them how many people had leveraged automation and Terraform, or just automation by itself, to deploy virtual machines. In that crowd, maybe 2 or 3 people put their hand up, which I thought was telling, right? That is to say that there is a huge portion of the IT world that still hasn't come to terms with the mundane and how to improve that. And when I talk about mundane, let's go and have a look and see what I mean by that. So typically in this situation here, what I am going to actually show you what I made not mundane and exciting and dynamic with Terraform was a basic Veeam deployment or component deployment of Veeam. So Veeam with itself has a couple of different infrastructure components. We have managed servers, which are basically Windows and Linux VMs, and then those servers are assigned roles, backup proxies, which are data movers, they could be repositories, and whatnot, right? So basically the traditional mundane way to deploy this is to go to vCenter or wherever your hypervisor is, right click here, add virtual machine. You get the point right here. Now, this might seem antiquated, but believe me, people are still doing it this way. Now, moving that step even further, what we have in here is that we can go into our Veeam infrastructure view and we can add that service. Once we've added it to vCenter, we then add the server here. We can see whether it's a vSphere server, Hyper-V, Windows, Linux. This is just what we're doing here. We're adding these servers to the actual infrastructure console. From there, we assign it a role here, right? Okay, so let's add a backup proxy. Let's go through all the configuration steps. Let's do it, okay? Mundane, boring, monotonous, okay? What I thought with our backup proxies, now our backup proxies are in Veeam, they basically should be scalable. They should be able to grow and shrink with the size of your backup infrastructure. Now, the other thing about these proxies and these servers is as they sit, they take space up. Okay, so they take CPU resources, they take compute resources, and they take storage and licensing, actually, as an important point there. So what I was able to do is think, well, how can we leverage Terraform? How can we leverage infrastructure as code to be able to automatically deploy these proxies? And maybe to that end, once we have the ability to automatically deploy them, let's now scale them up and down. Not only when we create them and we want to get rid of them and we want to scale up, but also what if we could control them per job? So when a job starts, let's deploy a bunch of proxies as the data movers, and then when the job finishes, we can then destroy that, okay? So let's apply, let's destroy. Okay, that was the whole premises after working with Terraform for a little bit. So basically, with that, if we look at the how, infrastructure as code with Terraform, what I was able to do was leverage Terraform with PowerShell, with the Veeam snap-in, to create a project which was able to then effectively take all of that together and do a dynamic Veeam proxy deployment. And this project was called Project Otosukeru. So just because I'm a bit crazy and I like Japan, I was in Tokyo at the time, I decided to make a Japanese name out of it. And Otosukeru basically means auto scale, right? So that's basically what it is. Now it's in GitHub. You guys can actually scan this. You can go to that address and you can actually see the code and download it, clone it, and do whatever you've got to do. Now, but what does it do? How did I get this working and what is its point? So let's go back to the remote desktop. So what you can see here is that I've basically cloned it down from GitHub. And when it comes down, effectively, we've got a PowerShell. So this is effectively wrapping Terraform in PowerShell. So we're leveraging PowerShell to do the heavy lifting. We're pumping in parameters. We're giving it options. We're leveraging the Veeam snap-in to connect to a Veeam server. We're going to leverage Veeam PowerShell commandlets to then configure these servers once we deploy it. But we leverage Terraform, importantly, to actually do the heavy lifting of the server deployment. Okay, and that dramatically decreases the flow, dramatically increases the efficiency of this sort of job. Okay, now let's have a look here. If we go down, and we'll get down to a bit of the code where the Terraform is actually being deployed. Second, let's just find it. Here we go. So here we go. It's deploying Proxy with Terraform. So these functions are built into the actual PowerShell themselves. And you can see here that what we're doing is we're basically leveraging the Terraform location. We're doing an apply on this particular distro. So the distro is then, could be Linux, could be Windows. And in this case, we're doing the proxy count. So how many proxies do we want to actually deploy at the same time? So you can see here that what I've got is I've got a couple of different modules, a proxy Linux module and a proxy Windows module, okay? And these are both Terraform modules that effectively do that configuration against vSphere. So this is actually done a little archaically. Again, I'm not the best coder, but this was a work of passion to get it working. So there's a lot more better techniques that I'm looking to port with the more latest releases of Terraform, and also some modules that have been released by guys like Grant Orchard and whatnot. So let's see it working. So basically, if we go here, we can see that we've got no managed servers and we've got no backup proxies. So what I'm going to go and do, and actually if we go to the VMware infrastructure here, we can see that we've got these servers that are in existence here at the moment. Let's go here. Let's actually do a deploy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy the PowerShell commandlet. I want it to be in a Ubuntu box. I'm going to set the proxies to 2. So what this is going to do, this is going to go and talk to Terraform. Terraform is going to execute that plan that we configured. We've fed all the variables in via some TF-var files, and it's going to go in and provision those servers. So you can see here, server 1, server 2, that's being provisioned. This is going to take about 1 to 2 minutes. Again, the timing of this is always awesome when you got 15 minutes for an actual session, but let's see how we go. I've put these on SSDs, so these should be fairly quick. It should take about a minute. But the great thing here is that what we're doing is we're, again, leveraging PowerShell to control the deployment of Terraform. Now, what we're actually doing as well, once this is actually finished, the Terraform will use the output and will output to some JSON files. And these JSON files will basically be fed back into the PowerShell and then used by the Veeam PowerShell commandlets to actually configure the proxies at the Veeam end, okay? So again, what we're doing is we're taking a deployment which through right-clicking, even through templates, probably could have taken 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, and we're going to turn that into literally seconds and repeatable. Okay, so let's give this a little bit more time before it actually kicks in and actually configures that those 2 machines there. So let's go and see if we've got anything happening here. Not just yet. Let's go back here. The magic of a live demo when you've got 15 minutes. It's always fun. But one of the interesting things here while this is going is that I had to work out a few caveats with Terraform at the time. And when I started working on this, it was actually with Terraform 0.1.1 and 0.1.2. So, things like working out whether the machine, the Linux machine, the Windows machine, were going to be deployed with a static IP address, whether they were going to be deployed with a DHCP. Those things weren't inherently easy. So I was able to do some trickery with that. That's in the code. So now you can see these machines have been deployed. We've actually SSH'd into those machines to basically configure some firewall rules here. And now what's going to happen again is it's going to go through, it's going to make sure that the machines have been deployed. And now what's going to happen here is we're using PowerShell. Again, the JSON information has been spat out by Terraform, fed back into the PowerShell through that mechanism. And now we're talking to Veeam to actually configure these proxies, okay? So in a second, we're creating a new Linux proxy here. So we should see them pop up. They'll pop up there. There we go. There's the first one. And then what we'll see here is a backup proxy appear here in a second as well. So again, happening in rapid time, rapid succession. Again, taking something that was mundane and making it efficient and fun, frankly. Let's wait for that to add the two servers themselves, because then what I wanted to finish up on is what this can be done from the point of view of use cases, right? Now, what this does, and we should see it pop up there, there's that first one, yep, 140 was configured, so now that's one proxy configured, and the second proxy is being added and configured now. But what this gives us the ability to do is to effectively have these as being ephemeral, okay? Not worry about them taking up any unnecessary resources until they're needed. We can do that in a particular way, and I'll show you how we actually configure that very quickly at the end of this particular process. But this is going to finish up here now. So let's go, yep, no worries. So I've deployed my two proxies because this is what I've been architected for. I know that I need these two. Again, the magic of Terraform is making this possible. And there we go. So basically in 1 minute and 54, we have those two proxies configured and deployed. And now they're ready to be used by the Veeam infrastructure. Now, what if we wanted to go and actually scale this up? So now what I would come and do is go back, use the same command, and then instead of 2, let's go to 3 now. So what this is going to do now, it's going to go, again, understand what's already in place, understand the current state, know that we've got 2 already deployed, and it's going to go and deploy that third one. Okay, it's going to make a couple of quick adjustments to the ones that have been deployed there, and it's going to deploy that third one in addition because we're scaling this up. And now obviously what we can do is we can scale it down at the same time. So let's wait for that to finish through. This one shouldn't take too long. How much time have we got left? Beautiful. 3 minutes. This is going to be right on time. So now, again, we're scaling this up. So again, the power of Terraform with PowerShell is great. And this could be anything, right? You could execute this with Python, PHP, doesn't really matter. Obviously, PowerShell is great because I knew that, you know, I can control certain aspects of Veeam with PowerShell, and I can manipulate the information that's being spat out via Terraform. So this is a really cool use case. So let's wait for this one to finish. This shouldn't take too much longer. Okay, that one is complete. The last one should be only seconds away. And then effectively from 2, we've got 3. Now we could scale this up to 2 to 10 to 50 to 100. It doesn't really matter. Not that you would use that, but think of this in another situation where you had the requirement to scale up and down servers. This is the power of the public cloud on vSphere without having to be too complex, without having to know APIs, right? Terraform is that black box that you just know how to deal with in terms of structuring that particular code, that plan, and executing it, okay? And again, working with external programs like Veeam completely shows its power. So there we go, it's deployed, we're running that firewall rule, and the last step of this is to add it to the Veeam backup and replication console. So let's wait for that to finish. This is that next step. Again, there's the JSONs being exported. It knows that the existing proxies have already been configured, so it skips that. And now it goes to that last one. It's going to add it into that job. So let's go there. So it's creating the Veeam Linux proxy. It'll add it into the actual infrastructure itself now. I love rushing through these things. We've got 2 minutes left. All right, here we go. It's going to be beautiful timing. So while that finishes and while it added, what I've actually got here is a couple of batch scripts, right? So again, very, very old school, but effectively these 2 batch scripts here can be used. And what they're doing, they're actually calling the PowerShell, okay? Now what they're doing is they're calling the PowerShell with a certain command. And what these is going to be used for is in the Veeam backup job. So let's just wait for that proxy to add. It's still adding that one. While it's happening, let's go to a job. Let's click on one of these jobs here. Let's click on edit. And under the storage tab, we've got this advanced option. And here you can see we've got scripts. So what I can actually do here is if I click that script and that script, what it's going to do, it's going to run that pre-script and that post-script. That pre-script is going to effectively create the proxies and deploy them automatically. So effectively have them ephemeral for the job. So at the start of the job, we deploy the proxies. At the end of the job, we destroy the proxies. A really cool use case and a really great example of how Terraform was able to be leveraged for a Veeam use case that wasn't probably there beforehand with the technologies that we had at hand. So that's just finishing that off. This one's taking a little bit longer. But effectively with that, I'll go back to the slides. All right, I want to go down. There we go. All right. So just to finish off, here are some links. So we've got the link number one to Project Otosukeru if you want to take a look at the code, if you want to see how to actually call the Terraform using PowerShell and then how you'll integrate that together with the JSON exports and the outputs and all that kind of stuff. There is a link to my website and also a little bit of a plug to my podcast, which is Great Things with Great Tech on YouTube now. You can subscribe to that. So with that, thank you very much for this very quick lightning talk, and I will check you guys later.